Welcome back to Part 4B, in which we'll be comparing and downloading virtualization products, looking at the activities that are in this chapter. Some factors to consider when selecting virtualization solutions include things like the software features, which we studied earlier in Part 4, the costs, what the system requirements are, especially for the Type 1 hypervisors, what level of support you may want, if you have familiarity with the software. A major requirement for running any type of virtualization software is having RAM and disk space on your host computer. So you may want to consider upgrading your RAM to have at least 8 to 12 gigabytes of RAM on the host if you're using a Type 2 virtualization hypervisor. Next, increase the speed of your hard drive if necessary by defragmenting that host computer's drive. This can help particularly with dynamically assigned disk image files. Table 1.6 shows a number of requirements for different software products, starting with VMware Workstation Player, Workstation Fusion, and then Hyper-V and Oracle VirtualBox. Notice Oracle VirtualBox probably has the minimum number of requirements, and then VMware Workstation Player is also a processor that is very economical. When it comes to downloading VMware products, again, you can download VMware Workstation Professional, but you only have 30 days, then you have to buy a license. Whereas VMware Workstation 12 Player, you can download a free version and use it on your home computer. There's a paid version you can get with VMware Player, but unless you need some of these extra features, the free version works just fine for most things. In Activity 1 on page 19, you're to create a VMware account and then view different product categories. If you're going to be working from your local computer, you'll definitely need to do Activity 1-1. If you're working with MindTap and the Live Virtual Machine Lab, this is an optional activity, but it might still be handy to have a VMware account and view different products as well as latest updates. Microsoft Live account, if you don't have one, Activity 1-2 shows you how to create it. Again, you won't need it if you're using MindTap, but you will need it if you're going to be working with the activities in the textbook. In Activity 1-3, you download VMware Workstation Professional. Of course, the version now is later, I think it's up to like 15, but you'll be updating your system with this latest version. And if you're working again from the textbook, you'll need to do Activity 1-1 and 1-3. If you're working with MindTap Live Virtual Machine Lab, then you can skip this activity. And your instructor may have you skip this activity if there's a copy of VMware Workstation on your classroom server, because there's a lot of download time which would be unnecessary to have each person downloading VMware Workstation if we have a copy already in the lab. And Oracle VirtualBox, page 39, that's a free workstation product. After going through this course, you'll definitely want to have Oracle VirtualBox on your home computer. So you may want to perform Activity 1-4 on your home system. Again, if you're using MindTap and Live Virtual Machine Labs, you will not need to download Oracle because it's already in the lab image. And if you're working in a classroom lab environment, there's probably a copy of the installation files on the classroom server. Hyper-V comes in both client and server versions, as we mentioned. It is a Type 1 hypervisor, even when running from the Windows 10. There's a setup program for Hyper-V, which you can use to convert the original operating system into a partition, and it puts the hypervisor below it at the hardware layer. So when you implement the Hyper-V feature on Windows 10 or Windows Server, the server, or in this case the desktop operating system, will become a partition within Hyper-V. And Microsoft offers a standalone version if you would like to run it without a host OS. But Hyper-V comes with Windows 2016 Server as well as Windows 10, and you can enable it through Windows features. To do the activities in this textbook, especially in chapters 5 and 6, you'll need to acquire a copy of Microsoft 2016 Server. And this can be done either through your school and educational license, or your school may be part of the DreamSpark program, and you can download Windows Server 2016 through DreamSpark, or you can download a 60-day trial by going to the website shown there on this slide. And then once you install that, you'll have 60 days, and then you can renew it for another 60. So I think you can, basically use 2016 Server for 180 days by renewing the trial. Okay, that wraps up everything in Chapter 1. A lot of material here to go over. We'll do a quick summary. First of all, virtualization software provides a separate emulated hardware environment on the computer, and the software that does this is called the hypervisor. And this allows the guest virtual machines to share the hardware environment of the host computer. As we've been mentioning, hypervisors can be Type 1 or bare metal, or Type 2, in which case they run on the host operating system. Virtualization features are often built into CPUs today, so if your CPU AMD or Intel probably have virtualization, you may have to turn that on through the BIOS. Generally speaking, we classified virtualization software as being either workstation, such as VMware Workstation, Oracle VirtualBox, or you have data center like vSphere and Hyper-V, and then we have virtual desktop infrastructure products that we can use to have a mobile, flexible desktop running on our servers. And then, of course, there's cloud-based virtualization, such as Microsoft Azure. Again, workstation virtualization intended to support desktop operating systems. Data center, on the other hand, reduces server sprawl by consolidating specialized servers into one physical computer. Application virtualization enables you to run different software versions on the same host by keeping them in separate containers. And we mentioned virtual desktop uses virtual machines to provide users with remote desktop environments that can be available from many locations and different devices. The cloud has come to represent services that are available across the internet, either through public or private data centers. As we mentioned, in terms of the features, virtualization software has both user and administrative consoles. And there are many sophisticated technologies that hypervisors use to manage the memory, which we've talked about, things like SLT and so forth. Then we have contention for physical memory, which if you're don't have enough memory is going to slow down your virtual machine performance. Virtual storage include a type of hard drive emulation, the size, and whether disk is fixed or dynamic. Special features which we see available on many products include snapshots, saving the VM state, parenting, cloning, of course different network options, as well as additional administrative tools that we can use to perform various functions on our hypervisor and virtual machines. Virtualization software allows you to emulate network adapters, as we've mentioned, and there are many additional tools that can be installed on your guest operating system, which can add capabilities for the hypervisor to share resources with the various virtual machines. VMware Workstation specializes in features for managing and running virtual machines, and vSphere is VMware's data center virtualization product. It's a Type 1 hypervisor, bare metal. Hyper-V is Microsoft's latest server virtualization software. Also ships starting with Windows Server 2008 and Windows 8 or Windows 10 both have Hyper-V as a desktop environment. So that brings us to the end of Chapter 1 lecture series. At this point, it'd probably be a good idea to go through review questions and maybe do some of the case projects at the end of the chapter. Thanks for listening.